As vaccinations ramp up for people over 80 in Windsor-Essex, the rollout for the local Indigenous community will soon include those 40 and up. Some people in Windsor have been working harder than ever throughout this pandemic. CBC Windsor is highlighting 3 workers over the coming days. Tonight, we'll tell you about someone who helps deliver goods to those who have to stay indoors. A live look at our city there. Just a gorgeous day today. Temperatures are sitting at around 3 degrees right now. And guess what? There is more sunshine tomorrow. Colette Kennedy will have the full forecast for us later tonight. Good evening. I'm Katerina Georgieva. Chris is away. Windsor-Essex is preparing to start vaccinating seniors outside of care homes and hospital settings. But as the region gets ready to give shots to members of the public, some who wanted to help out with the rollout are wondering why they're being turned down. CBC's Dan Takema brings us the latest on the COVID-19 situation, and he joins me now live. So Dan, let's start with, what do seniors need to know about the vaccine rollout?
Well, starting Monday, people who are 80 and older and live outside of a care home can start getting vaccinated for COVID-19. 2 centers where people can get shots are getting set up. The first is here at the WFCU Center, and the second is going to be at the Leamington Recreation Complex. Now, local health officials plan to administer 150 doses on day 1. The plan is to carry out 200 more doses every day after that, depending on supply. They say that the region is going to be among the first, if not the first in Ontario, to start vaccinating these community members. One 81-year-old I spoke to today said he's excited.
I'm pleased, surprised that it's available so soon. I think that everybody has got to be pleased and stop complaining, simply because it's been a huge development to get it to this stage. I think it's just the right thing to do to protect myself and to protect others as well. I think that's the way we have to live.
I spoke to another senior who's also a member at the Half Century Center in Leamington. He says folks are excited to get the shot.
We have almost 300 members. Many of them are 80 and over. I'm sure they're tired of reading books, and they're very anxious to get the vaccination so they'll feel safer about returning to the center and play cards and do various other activities.
Nice to hear some of that optimism. And Dan, the health unit is also looking for volunteers to help administer the vaccine. So how is that going?
Well, some nurses who work across the border have volunteered to help administer the vaccine here at home. The local health unit has told them thanks, but no thanks, leaving some of them upset. Dr. Wajid Ahmed says that's because of Canada's guidelines. They say that healthcare workers who work in the U.S. should try to isolate as much as possible outside of work or home. They say that regulations also don't differentiate between people who are vaccinated and those who aren't. I spoke with one local nurse who's licensed to work on both sides of the border. She said it must have been difficult for the health unit to turn down help, but she agrees with the decision.
Nurses who cross the border every day are valued and they're needed, and they have felt alienated and disregarded in some aspects, and I completely understand that. The fact of the matter is that this is not discrimination, this is public health. Anyone running a vaccine program would love to have as many nurses as possible, but the reality is that when you cross the border every day, or you cross the border once, you make a choice, and the choice is to come home and isolate.
Now, we've heard from other nurses who say that the majority of RNs who work in the U.S. are already vaccinated. They don't understand why they're not able to help. Katerina, as for those who are hoping to get the shot, it's by appointment only, and you can sign up right now on the health unit's website.
Thanks for this, Dan. The CBC's Dan Takema reporting live tonight. The Salvation Army, which houses people experiencing homelessness in Windsor, will be closing to new intakes tomorrow.
What we want to do is we want to stop that intake, which is what we're doing right across the province in all of our other shelters. Stop intake temporarily until we can get ourselves out of outbreak, and then we can begin to readmit people safely.
The health unit did not take the same step it did in shutting down the downtown mission. That's because of the way the Salvation Army's facility is set up. Some of those who tested positive were transferred to the city's isolation and recovery center. Others were able to shelter in place. Today, the city was also able to open up an emergency shelter at the Aquatic Center. It'll be able to house 75 people as the outbreaks at the downtown mission and Salvation Army continue. We told you last week about how some Indigenous leaders in parts of southwestern Ontario feel the vaccination rollout isn't moving fast enough. While here in Windsor-Essex, we're hearing that supply is indeed meeting demand. So far, 59 Indigenous people have gotten their shots, and that's those who are high risk and 60 and up. And they're also getting ready to open things up to those 40 and older as well, as early as next week. I spoke with the Indigenous nurse leading the Indigenous vaccination rollout locally about how she's creating a culturally aware space.
We have decorated it with some tribal print curtains. Our flow is a little bit different. We do have a section when you first walk in that has the medicines available, the 4 medicines, as well as some community agency information pamphlets. And then on the other side of that is a waiting room. So that way you don't have to wait in the line necessarily. You can come right in, you can have a seat, you can help yourself, take a look at the community resources that are out there. But ideally, we do like to put you into a room right away. But if we're a little bit backed up, there is that designated space to sit in. We have decorated the rooms with various Indigenous artwork. There's some dream catchers in there. There's sweetgrass. We've hung cedar above all the doors. We did ceremony there before we opened up the space, which involved prayer, and we washed the walls down with cedar and smudged the whole building as well. It's been amazing. I've had a few follow-up emails afterwards, just thanking me for creating that space, and they felt a lot more comfortable. I disclosed to them myself that I am Indigenous and where I'm from. And I think that helps to ease anxiety as well. Like this common finding, if I had to pick that theme, it would be safe. And that was our goal is, if we can create that space where individuals feel safe to receive care, hopefully that increases the uptake of the vaccine within the community as well.
And what has the uptake been like for the Indigenous community?
A lot of people have contacted me with questions. There's a lot of hesitancy surrounding the vaccine. Which is understandably so. Canada doesn't have the best history with vaccinating, especially when you hear that, inmates and Indigenous people are top priority. It sort of raises a few red flags. So it's up to me to be able to provide that education about the reasons why, Indigenous people are a priority. And Indigenous people are more likely to have other comorbidities. What we do know is that if you were to get COVID, it could lead to much higher side effects long-term for you because you do have those comorbidities. So let's get you vaccinated, let's get you protected now. And for a lot of our people, social distancing isn't possible. Even though, we're not on a reserve or a community location, still being in an urban setting still has those risks. We're still very family-oriented people, and social distancing isn't always an option.
Given that you're the only Indigenous nurse who is facilitating this at Windsor Regional Hospital, what has the experience been like for you to be a part of this?
The whole reason I went back into school for nursing was to be able to give back to my community and serve my community. And this is definitely fulfilling the purpose.
Since the pandemic began, many have had to work from home, but there are also many who couldn't. CBC Windsor has spoken to 3 people in Windsor-Essex who have continued to physically go into work throughout the pandemic. They're giving us a look into their work lives, what it's all been like for them. We'll introduce you to each worker over the next few days. Today, meet Sayed Zubair, who works for Instacart, a grocery delivery app. He started the job just before the pandemic hit.
My favorite part of the job is to meet a lot of people. Since I'm an extrovert, I tend to enjoy doing my job. I love speaking to people, so getting outside my home every single day and trying to do a good deed as well, because delivering groceries and being a frontline worker, it's not easy. Most of the customers in Windsor, they are very grateful. They're very grateful. I've received a ton of envelopes from people thanking me, because at the end of the day, it's just not about the money, but they do thank me for the service what I'm providing, because there's so many senior citizens who are living in retirement homes near the riverside, and every single time I go, they are very much thankful to what I'm doing for them. There are approximately 300 to 400 Instacart workers in Windsor alone. And I would just like the customers to say that just be nice to them, because they are risking their lives. They're waking up early in the morning. I wake up at 6:30 in the morning every day just to make sure that the groceries are delivered on time. So I would just ask the customers, just be a little patient. And if one item is damaged, please don't give them less than 5 stars, because our job is based on the rating. And if you don't give us a good rating, we don't get to serve you.
Unifor has reached a tentative agreement with one of 4 factories that supply parts for the Stellantis minivan plant. The deal with ZFTRW was reached last night, just hours after Local 444 announced the results of a strike vote. Workers will vote on the contract virtually this Saturday, and if passed, Unifor hopes it can serve as a pattern for the other Feeder 4 plants. An esteemed professor stripped of his job, a law student banned from campus, a community leader fired from her post. There are many Black Canadians who say racism is plaguing the long hallways of higher learning, and they say there are consequences for those who stand up for themselves. Asha Tomlinson is a guest host for The Fifth Estate this week, and she joins us now with more on this investigation. Asha, what are you hearing from Black Canadians about what it's like to study and work at some of Canada's biggest universities?
Well, Katerina, I can tell you that we're only scratching the surface with this investigation. This really does seem to be a problem that is pervasive and nationwide. And I think the key takeaway here from the interviews that we've done and the research that we've gathered is that no one is immune to anti-Black racism on campus. It doesn't matter what level you're at in the academic world. It could be that professor who speaks 8 languages and has 5 degrees, such as Aimé Avalanto, or Carol Sutherland, who is a well-respected staffer who, she won awards for her work on diversity. And then there's Jordan Afolabi, a law student at the University of Windsor, who's just trying to graduate and start his career. All of them say that they felt like they were targeted, that there were consequences as well when they stood up against people who were treating them unfairly, oftentimes administrators, and that they're now ready to seek accountability, seek justice, and that's why they're going public.
And Asha, you mentioned Jordan Afolabi. Our audience might remember that CBC Windsor shared his story. Chris Ensing brought us that story, and that involved the mishandling of an assault complaint. So can you explain some of the anti-Black racism that Afolabi and others say that they faced on Canadian campuses?
Exactly. CBC Windsor, Chris Ensing really brought Jordan Afolabi's story to the CBC initially, and that's how we jumped onto the story and investigated it even further. But yes, in 2019, Jordan Afolabi got into a fight with a white student, and they both filed internal complaints about it. However, as you know, Jordan was the only one banned from campus. And he said that, every time he tried to plead his case to administrators, he was effectively dismissed. He went to the president's office and, came across the administrative secretary, who then called campus police on him. We've been able to obtain that emergency call. Here's a part of it.
Campus police. Hi there. Hi, we have a gentleman around 25 to 30 in our lobby, a Black male, who won't give his name or state his business, and he's kind of loitering. He's ratting out profs and other students. And he said, "You calm down." So I'm a little leery to go out there by myself. I don't want to have a confrontation with him, because that's what he's at now.
All right, we'll have officers come by right away.
So that's the first time a lot of people in the Windsor community may be hearing that emergency call. And we know that the independent investigation concluded that Jordan may have been a product, the treatment may have been a product by the university of racial profiling or stereotyping, and the university apologized. But really quickly, the two other people that we feature in this story, they're complicated stories, hard to unpack, but just to give you a little bit of Professor Aimé Avalanto's story, the only Black faculty member in the French Studies Department at York University in Toronto. He says he started to call out racial discrimination. His career was derailed. Allegations started to pile up against him. An outside investigation concluded those allegations were founded and Aimé's racism claims were unfounded. He's been banned from campus. And then there's Carol Sutherland. She was a well-respected staffer at Ryerson University in Toronto, believed that she became more vocal about anti-Black racism and became a moving target for her colleagues, for administrators. She started to get panic attacks, going to hospital. It was that serious. And she was fired, Ryerson said, because she misused her sick leave. 3 cases out of many. All 3, Jordan, Aimé, and Carol, have now filed racial bias complaints with the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal.
And Asha, what are the solutions for all this?
I mean, it really is so deeply embedded and structural in these institutions. We did want to look at the angle of the Ontario Human Rights Commissioner. We talked to the commissioner about it because she says it is on her radar. Ina Chadha says she's been receiving multiple reports of anti-Black racism on campuses, to the fact that she had to write to the province's post-secondary institutions telling them, you need to do better. This is an issue. And here's more of what she told us.
They're in fact supposed to be the ones that have some of the answers on how to dismantle systemic discrimination. And so when parents drop off their children at campuses, they think their children are going to have the world open up to them, a world of education, a world of inclusivity, a world of innovation. And so there were many reports of disappointed families and children coming back to us about environments that were not inclusive, environments that were feeling toxic and unsafe.
And the commissioner said that she will now be asking each institution to prove there's adequate systemic work.
Okay. Sorry about that. We had a bit of a technical issue there. Don't miss Being Black in Canada. That's Saturday on CBC News Network and CBC Gem. And Asha Tomlinson, you'll remember, she was also the former host of CBC Windsor News at 6. And she looks at the challenges facing Black Canadians in this time of racial disruption, with people on a quest for social justice and determined to effect long-lasting change. And that's on CBC News Network on Saturday afternoon at 4:30. And Colette Kennedy joins us now for weather. Colette, I feel like we've just been spoiled with some gorgeous sunshine the last few days.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And we get it again. We're spoiled again on Friday. So really nice to see the setup, especially because the weekend's going to be a bit hit and miss. And I'll walk you through that. But I just want you, if you can possibly, to enjoy some of the fine weather we'll be seeing on our Friday. Our current temperature is 3 degrees. We were up to just over 4.3 for the high today after a morning low of -4. A little cooler there for Chatham-Kent with that breeze coming off the lake, 15 kilometers an hour. But essentially what you're seeing here is a south to southwesterly flow. So we will be a little bit milder as we go into tomorrow, or at least similar in terms of what we'll be seeing. However, tonight some colder air coming through. And not only that, a little bit of flurry activity associated with it. This is just a pop of energy that's coming through. It's a very, very weak system. And so giving a dusting in a few spots here, and that'll be lingering into the evening. So I do have it in the forecast again, just some light stuff into London and Sarnia. We should stay drier, but just dealing with a bit of that cloud cover here towards Windsor and Leamington area. But I do want to show you as we go into tomorrow. Now, there might be just a little bit of cloud cover in the morning hours till we can clear that out. But watch as high pressure builds in and this just erodes. That's full sunshine that we'll be experiencing on Friday. It's really going to be a nice day. You will need your sunglasses. Then you'll need the umbrella into Saturday morning. So this works its way in, a bit of a mix at times, mostly turning over to some showers there. This is overnight, Friday night into Saturday morning. Now into the morning hours, we'll see that moving away. It moves pretty quickly through. So we will get into drier conditions. There may still be a few scattered showers, but I'm thinking much of Saturday, maybe not ideal, maybe not as much sun as Friday, but much of Saturday will be okay. A lot of cloud cover into Sunday, but we will have likely some showers coming back into Sunday as well. So just you'll have to kind of pick and choose a little bit. There you go. -4 last night? Yeah, well, -8 tonight, so much cooler, and our daytime high, Sarnia, you may even see 4 degrees for tomorrow, but 7 Saturday, and it looks like up to 9 on Sunday before some colder air comes in on the backside of that one.
You know what, Colette, that's not too shabby. I can get behind that.
Yeah, with those warm temperatures, you just got to find those dry spots on the weekend. You'll be doing just fine.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Colette.
You're welcome.
And in just a few minutes, we'll tell you about how some are taking advantage of both the sunshine and the ice. You'll meet a passionate fisherman when we come back. Welcome back. Now, as I mentioned to Colette, today was just absolutely gorgeous. Yet another day to get outside. I hope you're able to get outdoors and potentially maybe even enjoy a fun winter activity. However, those days are limited if they have to do with both snow and ice. But before everything thaws away, CBC's Mike Evans went out to the Detroit River to talk to a local man who makes a hobby out of ice fishing.
So you've been out here all winter. It must be nice on a day like today. The sun is shining.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. And the only thing that really distracts you from fishing all the time is the wind. It's been super cold the last 2 or 3 weeks, so it's nice to get inside the hut. And like I say, being able to see your fish and be able to target them and sight fish them, that's kind of nice as well.
You got this whole place to yourself right now.
Well, there's a lot of members. Today they're not out, but a lot of members from Solidarity really enjoy coming down, like a camaraderie. Even if there's no fish, it's nice to be outside. It's nice in my hut. There's lots of, you can see, I'll take you in there after if you want to look. You can look down in the holes and actually see the fish and what's going on in the bottom. I've seen big pikes come through, as big, like I've got a 6-inch hole, pike come by that looks like it's maybe 4 or 5 feet, lots of baby perch and a lot of good sized perch as well.
Now, if you catch more fish than you can eat, do you give them to some of your neighbors? How does that work?
You know, I love fish, and I've got family that live in the building, and they all love fish, so there's never a problem helping feed the family.
Now, all that said, because of these warmer temperatures, the OPP, they are warning snowmobilers to stay off the frozen waterways, with a reminder that for those on their snowmobiles, no ice is safe ice. And a Vincent van Gogh painting is to be shown to the public for the very first time after spending more than a century in a French family's private collection.
You see a windmill and you think Van Gogh windmill, it must be a Dutch subject, but not at all. It is Montmartre. It's the windmill, one of the windmills, the pepper mill that was in Montmartre until 1911.
Van Gogh completed this painting of a street in Paris while living in the city with his brother in 1887. The painting is set to go on public display in Amsterdam and Hong Kong before being sold at auction in Paris on March 25th. Now, it is expected to fetch the equivalent of at least $7.5 million Canadian dollars. The work was acquired by a French collector in 1920 and has remained in the same family ever since. That is it for CBC Windsor News. Thanks so much for watching. For news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor, and you can find us on social media as well. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Have yourselves a great night.